On this installment of the basics, I want to talk to you about choosing a CCG, also known as customizable card game. Now you want to find one that's the right fit for you. You don't just want to go out there, go to your nearest comic or hobby store and go, hey, I want that starter pack, and plunk down your money. You need to find a CCG that you're going to enjoy, maybe one that follows an interest you already have along that same theme. I'm going to take you through some of the main card games that have been played since the 1990s that are still playing in tournaments today, and you can still get cards for them, and they're still a hell of a lot of fun. There have been a lot of newer CCGs on the market, but nothing compares to the classics. So we're going to start there, okay? CCGs come in all genres. So for example, when I first started playing CCGs in 1994, it was the outset of the Star Trek customizable card game. Science fiction based. If you already know a lot about Star Trek or you're a Star Trek fan, this is the game for you. There's a lot of thinking involved. There are a lot of phases to the game, including seed phase, missions, battles. You have to deal with personnel and attributes. There's a lot of thinking involved. The object of the game is to score 100 points before your opponent in any way you can. If you want to think a lot, this is a good game to get into. The X-Files, and I played this sparingly. I actually had an original set that I ended up selling, but then I got back into it years later. X-Files is a game on detective skills and deducing. Basically, the purpose of the game is to discover your opponent's X-file through using personnel, equipment to help them, occasional combat, and cards known as events and adversaries to move the game along. This is a big detective game, so it's not just the thinking involved, but you have to deduce what's going on through the course of the game. If you're a fan of the X-Files, it helps. You don't have to be. As long as you have good detective skills and a good brain in your head, you can play. Dragon Ball Z, it's a very straightforward game. There's a lot of battling. If you know anything about the cartoon series, you'll know about the powers and battles and special abilities that the characters have. That's been translated into the game. I've never played it. I just happen to have a bunch of promo cards I picked up over the years at tournaments or in magazines, and I've read a bit about it. Not my kind of game, but from what I heard, it's fun. Magic the Gathering, the classic CCG. One of the easiest games to get into, but beware, it is cardboard crack. It'll take all your money. You won't have any money left over for drugs, unfortunately. Easy to play, easy setup. Anybody can get into it. You don't have to be a fan of everything. It does get hairy at times. You're going to need to use things for counters, such as dice or tokens. And as I've mentioned in the previous episode of the basics, I'm a big fan of using dice for this game as your counters. It's a hell of a lot of fun. There are different colors of mana to build different decks. There's a lot of strategizing to be done. So when you get into Magic, you don't just play it, it plays you. And finally, Warhammer 40,000. Like the miniatures, this card game is based on the battlefield, the characters and the soldiers and everything else involved with Warhammer. I'm not too familiar with the whole mythos behind Warhammer, but I hear it's an interesting game. Cards are harder to come by now. Again, I have about 20 promo cards that I picked up, and I thought about getting into the game, but I'm already into too many CCGs, and I have been for some time. One of the main things I can stress, that I need to stress about getting into a CCG is find the rules first. Now in the age of the internet, you can go and look up the rules for any CCG and read them online before you get anywhere or have to buy anything. Back in the day, when CCGs came out, there was no internet. So you'd buy your starter deck and the rules would be inside in a little booklet like this, and that's how you would learn. There was no tips. Magazines would only come out once a month, so you'd go a long time without learning new deck strategies or tips. Check out the rules first, see if it's a good fit for you. Now, I'm not going to lie to you and say CCGs are cheap and they're a quick and easy hobby. CCGs do cost a lot of money. Even for a startup, you're going to be spending about $40 to buy a starter deck and 4 or 5 boosters. I always recommend buying 1 starter and 5 boosters to start, because that gives you enough of a card pool to get at least 1 good deck made. If you want to go overboard, you can buy 2 starter decks and 10 boosters and separate them into half, so that way you have the basis for 2 decks. It doesn't always work out depending on the game, the size of the booster packs, and the kind of cards you're going to get in the booster packs, because in most booster packs you're lucky to get 1 rare and the rest are split between, say, 40-60% of uncommons and commons. Some games do have ultra rares. Don't just buy the game because you're trying to get that ultra rare that's worth several $100s. Get into a game because you want to play it, because you want to have fun, and because it's something you want to do. I didn't just get into CCGs because I was a Star Trek fan or a fan of goblins and dragons and all that, because at the time it was a thing. It's something I wanted to do, and I've enjoyed it for many years, and you can too. But research before you get into a CCG. Okay? That's the important part. And above all else, have fun. That's why we play. Have a good day.